Senator Corker.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for being here. As you know, we talked a lot about the tax reform, a great deal in our office. I'll have to say I was surprised. I saw Christine Lagarde at the event last week, and I went there because of my foreign policy activities. And I will say that she had revised upward world economic growth because of what the United States have done, which was quite shocking to me, actually, and to see what other countries are doing in response to what we did with tax reform is pretty amazing. So I do want to say it seems to be having an impact far beyond what we thought it would have just on our own country. On the Russia issue, just to my friends, well, I'm very invested in this. I was a big part of this passing, working very closely with Crapo and Brown. I actually think what they've done is exactly the right thing. We gave a period of time to warn people about doing business with Russia. That was the purpose of it. Our diplomats were involved in that. They did keep numbers of transactions from occurring. They've put together this report, and now the process is that they will begin sanctioning. So just for what it's worth, as someone, as you know, that's more than glad to offer criticism if I think it needs to be offered, in this particular case, I do think they've handled it in the way that it was supposed to be handled. I do look forward, though, to sanctions being put in place for those violators. On the issue of housing finance reform, which Senator Crapo brought up earlier, I know that you've been very involved in this in the past, understand it well. Let me just go through a series of questions quickly. The conservatorship that we now have is unsustainable, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And if we have a new model of housing finance reform, and there are people on both sides of the aisle that are working together and have worked together in the past, if we have a government guarantee in the future, would it not be your preference that that be at the actual security level and not at the entity level?
That would be my preference.
So I think most of us understand, whereas last time taxpayers had to bail out with hundreds of billions of dollars the entities, what we really care about is the individual borrowers and that their securities are guaranteed. Is that correct?
That's what would create a sustained liquid market.
And I assume that if we were able to pass something here that you would want significant private capital in advance of an explicit guarantee, where if we are issuing guarantees, whereas was not the case in the past, these whatever entities are actually paying for those, so the government is getting something for the Eagle stamp, which is causing that 30-year mortgage to be guaranteed. Is that correct?
That's correct. So taxpayers would be compensated for any unlikely risk.
And I assume if we were to put in place a new regime, we would want to do what we could to end the too big to fail situation that we have today. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. So let me just, in the event we don't act, as you know, we passed something in years past called Jumpstart, which said that we could only revise these entities through a process of us acting. That ended December the 31st at midnight. So now the administration, if they so chose, and I think you've committed to the fact you're not going to leave things as they are, what would be your options? If we don't act, and I hope that we will, I mean, what would be your options with these entities?
There are certain administrative options that we have. These entities are very complicated, and I would just say my strong preference would be to work with Congress on a bipartisan basis to reach a long-term solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in the event this great bipartisanship doesn't survive and we don't get this done, it's a very complicated topic. What are some of the steps that you might take? For instance, I know that in past administrations, the notion of putting these entities into receivership and moving forward with a clean slate has been laid out. Is that something that you have thought about?
Again, we've thought about and considered lots of things. I don't really want to go through in this format publicly all the different alternatives. You and I have spoken. I'd be more than happy to come see you. But there are lots of alternatives. I just want to be careful, given that they do have different market impacts.
Well, I appreciate that, and I do appreciate your leadership on this issue and extreme knowledge. And I would just say to the chairman, I know this is one of your goals. I actually believe that we've got an opportunity to do something. It's a very complex topic that matters. We have an administration that is willing to work with us. And I think for the first time, we have an opportunity because of just all the things that have occurred that we have a lot of interest out there, let's face it. I mean, we have people who have shareholders. We have shareholders in these entities today. And I understand some of the rubs that have existed there. I think we've got an opportunity, though, to really deal with all of the interest in a manner that is fair, but also move our nation ahead in a manner that we don't have these two behemoths that basically are 100% right now backed by the federal government, and I hope we'll get there.